The last thing Amara's grandfather did before he died wasn't saying goodbye. He reached for something beside his bed.
I only have one final wish.
And made a wish. Three days later, a man appeared. Your grandfather summoned me.
But that wasn't the real secret.
Before we uncover what Amara's grandfather wished for, subscribe, like this video, and tell me in the comments, what do you think his final wish was? Now, let's go back to the night when it all began.
The rain hammered against the hospital window as Amara Chen gripped her grandfather's withering hand. His breathing was shallow, laboured, each inhale a struggle. The machines beside his bed beeped steadily, marking the seconds of his final moments on Earth. Amara was 28 years old, and in 3 minutes she would become an orphan in every way that mattered. Her parents had died when she was a child. Her grandfather was all the family she had left. Amara, her grandfather whispered, his voice barely audible above the hum of hospital equipment. Come closer. She leaned in, her ear near his lips, tears streaming down her face. She didn't want to hear his last words. She wanted to believe he could stay, that modern medicine could work one more miracle. But the doctors had already told her there was nothing left to do. I have made a choice for you, he continued, his hand squeezing hers with surprising strength. Before I crossed the river to the ancestors, I made 3 wishes to a Jinn. A genie, if you prefer English words. Amara pulled back, her eyes widening. Grandfather, what are you talking about? Listen, he insisted, his golden eyes she had inherited, locking onto hers. 40 years ago, I was a young man with nothing. A Jinn granted me wealth beyond imagination, my first wish. With that wealth, I built Kwon and Sons. I built our legacy. Grandfather, the second wish was for protection. For you, for our family, for this company that is your inheritance. He coughed, his body convulsing. When he spoke again, his voice was even quieter. But a legacy without support is a building with no foundation. So I made a third wish. Amara felt her stomach drop. What did you wish for? A husband for you. A man bound by ancient magic to serve you, protect you, for 5 years. After 5 years he will be free from the lamp. Free from servitude. But he will be bound to you instead. By contract, by duty, by love if the gods are merciful. No, Amara shook her head violently. No, grandfather, I don't need this. I can take care of myself. I don't need... You are strong, he interrupted, his voice growing fainter. Stronger than you know, but even the strongest tree bends in the wind. This man will be your shelter. His name is Khari. He will come to you. Grandfather's eyes began to close. Trust me, Amara, please. Trust me one last time. Grandfather, wait. But he was gone. His hand went limp in hers. The machines screamed their alarm, but Amara barely heard them. She was trapped in a moment that felt impossible, untethered from reality. Her grandfather had just bound her to a stranger using magic that shouldn't exist. He had made a choice for her life, for her future, and he had taken that choice to his grave. The funeral was a blur of white flowers and whispered condolences. Amara moved through it like a ghost, accepting hugs from relatives she barely knew, nodding at business associates who came to pay their respects. But her mind was elsewhere, spinning with her grandfather's final words. A Jinn, a husband, magic. She had convinced herself it was delirium, the morphine talking. Old men said strange things before they died. It meant nothing. Then, 3 days after the funeral, Amara sat in her first board meeting as the new CEO of Kwon and Sons. The conference room was all chrome and glass, 40 stories above Seoul streets. Amara wore a charcoal suit, her hair pulled back in a severe knot. She had prepared for this moment her entire life, even if she hadn't known it. She had studied business, worked in every department, learned the language of spreadsheets and profit margins. None of it mattered. Ms. Chen, began Park Sung-min, a board member who had known her grandfather for 30 years, we appreciate your dedication, but we must be frank. The company is struggling. 3 major contracts have been terminated in the last month alone. Our traditional textile line is losing ground to fast fashion competitors, and frankly, the board is concerned that someone of your age and background might not have the experience to navigate these challenges. Background? He meant Korean American. He meant female. He meant young. I understand the concerns, Amara said, her voice steady even as her heart raced. But I have been preparing for this role since I was old enough to understand what it meant. My grandfather trusted me. I intend to honour that trust. Another board member, older, with white hair and a dismissive expression, shook his head. Trust is admirable, but the market doesn't run on trust. It runs on results. In 6 months, we will review your performance. If things don't improve, the board will be forced to consider other options. 6 months. She had 6 months to save a company that was hemorrhaging money. She had 6 months to prove herself to men who had already decided she didn't belong. As Amara gathered her papers at the end of the meeting, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Amara Kwon, I am the one your grandfather bound me to serve. I am in your city. I am coming to you now. Amara's hands trembled. She told herself it was a prank, someone playing a cruel joke. But she knew it wasn't. Deep down, in a place she didn't want to acknowledge, she knew it was real. She drove straight from the office to her penthouse in Gangnam, her mind a tornado of conflicting emotions. The apartment was her sanctuary, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, minimalist furniture, everything controlled and orderly. She made herself tea, trying to calm her nerves. She told herself there was a rational explanation for everything. Then the air shimmered. It happened without warning, like heat rising from summer asphalt. The space in her living room bent and warped, and suddenly a man was standing there, solid and real and impossible. He was tall, impeccably dressed in a tailored charcoal suit that matched her own, with skin the colour of dark honey, and eyes that flickered gold in the lamplight. His beauty was almost alien, too perfect, too aware, like someone who had learned humanity from studying rather than living it. Amara Kwon, he said, his voice smooth and measured. I am Khari Kim. I am the Jinn of the Binding Rose. I have been bound by your grandfather's final wish to serve and protect you for 5 years, after which I will be free from the lamp, contingent upon fulfilling the contract. Amara stumbled backward, nearly knocking over her tea. This isn't real. You're not real. I assure you I am quite real. He stepped toward her, and she could feel the power radiating from him, not threatening, but present, undeniable. Your grandfather made 3 wishes to a being of ancient magic. I granted all 3. The third was that I marry you and serve your interests faithfully for 5 years. In exchange, my eternal servitude to the lamp ends, and I gain freedom. My grandfather had no right. He had every right as the wisher, Khari interrupted gently. And you have every right to refuse. If you refuse the marriage, the contract dissolves. You will receive no further benefit of my service. Your family's protection ends, and I will return to the lamp for another 1,000 years. He paused, letting that sink in. But I cannot force you. Magic does not work through coercion. It works through consent. Amara felt the weight of his words. She thought about the board meeting, the skepticism in their eyes, the 6-month ultimatum. She thought about her grandfather, who would never have bound her to a stranger unless he believed it was necessary. Why would you agree to this? She asked. Why would any being want to be bound to a stranger? Because, Khari said, and for the first time, something genuine flickered across his perfect face. After 1,000 years of servitude, 5 more years is a small price to pay for freedom. And because your grandfather loved you enough to risk everything to ensure your safety, that is a kind of magic in itself. Amara stared at him for a long moment. Then, with trembling hands, she signed the papers he produced, legal documents that somehow existed alongside the magical contract. The moment her pen touched paper, gold light flared through the apartment, so bright that Amara had to close her eyes. She felt something shift in the air, a vibration in her bones, as if the universe itself had reorganized around this new arrangement. When she opened her eyes, Khari was still standing there, but he looked different somehow. More solid, more real, more bound. The wedding was a cold affair, conducted in a small courthouse, with only a bored judge and a court-appointed witness. Amara wore a simple navy dress, not white, not celebratory, just something she already owned. Khari wore the same impeccable suit. No vows were exchanged. No rings were placed. It was a legal transaction with magical consequences, nothing more. Afterward, they drove back to the penthouse in separate cars. Amara sat in the back seat, her heart pounding, trying to process what her life had become in the span of a single week. She had lost her grandfather, become CEO of a failing company, and married a magical being, all before her 29th birthday. When they arrived at the apartment, Khari followed her inside but immediately said, "I will stay in the guest room. Your private space is your own. I do not need to sleep, and I will not intrude on your comfort." "You don't sleep?" Amara asked despite herself. "Not as humans do. I am ancient, and my needs have evolved beyond such mortal requirements." He paused at the entrance to the hallway. "Is there anything you need before you retire?" "No," Amara said, not meeting his eyes. "Just stay away from me." She went to her bedroom and closed the door, locking it, even though she knew a lock would mean nothing to a being of magic. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of the city outside her window. Somewhere in the darkness, she heard a soft sound, soil being poured, water being misted. She got up and looked through the crack in her curtains. On the balcony, Khari stood in moonlight, tending a small pot of dark soil. He was planting something, his movements careful and reverent. Gold light pulsed from his fingertips as he worked. Whatever he was planting, it was being grown by magic, accelerated, impossible, beautiful. Amara pulled her curtain closed and returned to bed, but sleep would not come. The next morning, Amara went to the office and threw herself into work. She reviewed contracts, analysed profit margins, studied the competition. She barely acknowledged Khari when he appeared with her morning coffee, perfectly prepared exactly the way she liked it. A detail she had never mentioned. She didn't ask how he knew. She didn't want to know. Days blurred into weeks. Amara realised that working with Khari was like working with a ghost who could read minds. In meetings, she would mention a problem in passing, and the next day, he would have a solution prepared. Not magical solutions, real business strategies, grounded in sound economic principles, but brilliant nonetheless. Ideas that couldn't have come from someone who hadn't studied her industry intensely. 3 months into her tenure as CEO, Amara received an urgent message. Desmond Park, the billionaire businessman whose investment could save Kwon and Sons, was in Seoul. And miraculously, an old friend of Amara's was facilitating an introduction. Marcus Lee had been Amara's boyfriend in her final year of university. He was charming, handsome, and ambitious, a former footballer who had transitioned into business consulting. They had broken up mutually, deciding that long distance wouldn't work when Amara moved back to Korea. But they had remained friends, or so she thought. "Amara," Marcus embraced her at the upscale restaurant where they'd arranged to meet Desmond Park. "I heard about your grandfather. I'm so sorry. And congratulations on the promotion." "Thank you," Amara said, allowing herself to relax slightly in his familiar presence. "It's been overwhelming." "I bet. That's why I reached out to Desmond. I've been consulting with his company, and I mentioned Kwon and Sons to him. He's interested in hearing your pitch." Marcus grinned, and Amara felt a flutter of something in her chest. Gratitude, relief, and something else she didn't want to name. The dinner was tense. Desmond Park was exactly as intimidating as his reputation suggested. Cool, calculating, unimpressed. He asked pointed questions about Kwon and Sons' financial projections, customer base, and competitive advantages. Amara answered as best she could, but she could see the doubt in his eyes. Why would a visionary like him invest in a struggling textile company when he could invest in any number of more profitable ventures. Then Khari, who had been sitting quietly at the table, introduced simply as Amara's husband, leaned forward slightly. He caught Desmond's eye and held it for just a moment. Something passed between them, a flicker of recognition or understanding that Amara couldn't quite pass. Desmond's entire demeanour shifted. He leaned back in his chair, a smile playing at his lips. "You know what? I like your style. Let's talk numbers. I think we can make a deal." The contract was finalised within weeks. The investment would save Kwon and Sons and position it for growth. Amara's board meeting the following month was transformed. The same men who had doubted her 6 months ago now nodded along as she presented expansion plans and new product lines. The transformation was so complete that it felt like a different universe. But the credit went entirely to Marcus. In the eyes of the board, in the media coverage, in the congratulations that flooded her inbox. It was Marcus Lee who had facilitated the deal. Marcus Lee, who had connections in the right places. Marcus Lee, who had saved Kwon and Sons. Amara never mentioned Khari's role. She barely admitted it to herself. 4 years into the arrangement, Amara was a different woman. She was confident, respected, feared even. Kwon and Sons had become a powerhouse in the Korean textile industry, known for both traditional craftsmanship and innovative designs. Amara was featured in magazines as one of Korea's most promising young executives. She was invited to exclusive events, courted by investors, sought out for her opinion. But something had hollowed out inside her. It was her birthday, and Amara spent it alone in her office, reviewing quarterly reports. She didn't celebrate birthdays anymore. They reminded her of loss, of time passing, of all the things she hadn't done instead of building her empire. At 6 o'clock, her phone rang. It was Marcus. "Happy birthday, Amara," he said cheerfully. "I'm in Seoul for a few days. Come have dinner with me?" Something in his tone made her say yes. She told herself it was just dinner with an old friend. She told herself it was innocent. The restaurant was intimate, candlelit, clearly chosen with romance in mind. Marcus ordered wine, and they talked about old times, university, their relationship, the friends they had had back then. He was charming, attentive, making her laugh in a way she hadn't in years. "You know," Marcus said as dessert arrived, "I never got over you." Amara froze, her spoon halfway to her mouth. "Marcus, hear me out," he continued, reaching across the table to take her hand. "We were so young when we broke up, but I've watched your career, followed your success. You're incredible, Amara, and I think we could be incredible together. Now that you're established, now that you've proven yourself, we could build something amazing." Before Amara could respond, she felt a presence behind her. Khari was standing there, his expression neutral but his golden eyes blazing. She hadn't even heard him enter the restaurant. "The car is ready, Amara," he said quietly. "Whenever you wish to leave." Marcus's hand immediately released hers, as if burned. "Who is this?" "Her husband," Khari said, and the weight of those 2 words, spoken with such certainty, such ownership, hung in the air like a gong strike. After that night, things shifted. Amara found herself studying Khari more carefully, noticing details she had deliberately ignored. The way he moved through the world with absolute grace, the way people responded to him, not with the casual deference they gave her, but with something deeper, almost reverential. The way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching, with an expression that held such longing it made her chest ache. A week after the disastrous dinner with Marcus, Amara couldn't sleep. She went to the balcony for air and found Khari there, tending to the roses. The plant had grown into something spectacular. Roses that bloomed in an impossible midnight blue. Flowers that shouldn't exist in nature. Flowers that glowed faintly with residual magic in the darkness. There were hundreds of them now, cascading across the entire balcony, like a waterfall of indigo and sapphire. "Why?" Amara whispered, running her fingers across a petal. The flower was warm to the touch, vibrating with life and magic. "Because they are beautiful," Khari said simply. "And so are you. I wanted to create something beautiful for you. Amara noticed something glinting among the flowers. Leather, old paper. She reached down and pulled out a journal, bound in midnight blue that matched the roses. Inside, written in careful, beautiful handwriting, were 5 years of observations. Day 1. She will not look at me. I understand. I am a stranger, a burden imposed by her grandfather. I do not blame her for the coldness in her eyes. Month 3. She laughed at a joke today. It was the first genuine laugh I have heard from her. The sound of it, I cannot describe it. It was worth the weight of the binding just to hear that one moment of joy. Year 2. Marcus has returned. She looks at him with something I can only describe as longing. I understand. He is human. He is free. I am neither. I do not blame her for wanting someone who is not tethered to obligation. Year 4. I planted the rose seed today. By the time she sees it in full bloom, I will have served my time. The magic will fade. The flowers will die. But I wanted her to know once that I loved her, truly and completely. Not because I was bound to, but because I could not help but do so. That is the most real thing about me. My love for her, unmagical and unchanging. The journal fell from Amara's hands. She stumbled backward, tears streaming down her face. Why would you give me this? Why would you show me this? Because you asked why, Khari said, moving toward her. This is the answer. This is everything. I have loved you in silence because that was what the situation demanded. But the silence has been agony. I don't even know you, Amara whispered. No, Khari agreed sadly. You have chosen not to know me. But I know you. I know that you take your coffee with a single sugar and a touch of cream at exactly 6:47 every morning. I know that you hum when you think no one is listening. I know that you call your mother's photograph Uma sometimes when you think you're alone. I know that you are terrified of failing, terrified of being unloved, terrified of needing anyone. I know you better than anyone ever will. But knowing is not the same as being known. And you have refused to let me in. Amara felt something cracking inside her chest, walls she had built so carefully beginning to crumble. If you really loved me, you would let me go. I would, Khari said softly. In 3 months, the 5-year contract is expired. I will be free. You will be free of me. And then if you wish it, I will disappear from your life entirely. But until that moment comes, I will not pretend that I do not love you. That would be the only lie I have told you. 3 months later, an invitation arrived at Amara's office. It was elegant, mysterious, addressed to her and her husband. The letterhead read, "You are cordially invited to the Luminance, a gathering of those blessed by the gin of the binding rose." Amara's heart stopped. The Luminance, the secret society that everyone in Seoul's elite circles whispered about, the exclusive gathering that seemed to pull together impossibly successful people. And it was being held in 3 days, and Khari's identity was about to be revealed to the world. She found him in his study, a room she rarely entered, and handed him the invitation without a word. Khari read it, and his expression grew distant. "The time has come," he said quietly. "Your grandfather arranged this as well, though I did not realize it until recently. The luminance will reveal what I am. After that, you will never be able to unsee me, and I will be free." The ceremony took place in an underground speakeasy in Myeongdong, disguised as a private members' club. When Amara and Khari arrived, the space had been transformed into something otherworldly, crystal chandeliers casting prismatic light, ancient tapestries on the walls, an atmosphere of careful power and old money. The room was filled with Seoul's elite, CEOs, politicians, artists, entrepreneurs, people Amara had read about in the news. But what struck her was how they reacted when Khari entered. People straightened, conversations paused. There was a reverence in the air, a collective recognition of something vast and ancient and powerful. A woman approached them, striking, with dark skin and sharp eyes, dressed in a traditional Korean hanbok, modernized with African patterns. "Khari," she said, embracing him warmly, "you've decided to appear before the luminance at last." "Zara," Khari responded, holding her gaze. "It was always inevitable." The woman, Zara, turned to Amara with a knowing smile. And this must be Amara Chen. Come, let me show you something. Before Amara could protest, Zara led her to a corner of the room where photographs lined the walls. Dozens of them, hundreds perhaps. Photographs of people from throughout history all bearing the same tattoo, a marking that resembled the blue roses on Amara's balcony. The luminance is 700 years old, Zara explained. Every person in this room owes their success, their wealth, their happiness to the intervention of the Jinn of the binding rose. He has walked through history in human form, appearing in different eras, different countries, always granting wishes that change lives, always asking for nothing in return except service to the lamp, until now. Amara's stomach dropped. What do you mean, until now? Tonight, Khari's 5-year contract with your family ends. Tonight, he will be free from the lamp for the first time in 1,000 years. Zara smiled sadly. He will have earned that freedom, but freedom comes with a price. The master of ceremonies called everyone to attention. The room fell silent. On a raised platform, a man in traditional Korean formal wear stood waiting. It took Amara a moment to realize it was Khari. He looked different in the formal attire. Regal, ancient, powerful in a way that went beyond physical appearance. Members of the Luminance, the master's voice rang out. We gather tonight to honor the Jinn of the binding rose, who has walked among us unseen for 7 centuries, granting wishes, building legacies, changing the course of human history. Tonight, we honor his freedom. The crowd erupted in applause and bows. Amara felt the room spin around her. Everything she had refused to understand, everything she had deliberately ignored, was suddenly laid bare before her. Khari was not just magical, he was legendary. He was the reason this entire society existed. He was the invisible force behind centuries of human achievement, and she had treated him like a servant. After the ceremony, Amara found Khari in a quiet garden outside the venue. She didn't know what to say, so she said nothing. She simply stood beside him in the darkness. I am free, Khari said after a long moment. As of tonight, the binding to the lamp is broken. I owe you nothing. The contract is fulfilled. What will you do? Amara asked, her voice small. I do not know, Khari admitted. For the first time in 1,000 years, my future is my own. I have no wishes to fulfill, no master to serve, no binding to obey. I am completely, utterly free. He turned to look at her, and his golden eyes were wet with tears. And I have no idea what to do with that freedom. The next morning, Khari was gone. He had left no note, no explanation. He simply vanished from the apartment, from her life, leaving behind only the blue roses and the journal on the balcony. Amara tried to work, but she couldn't focus. She attended meetings, made decisions, moved through her days like an automaton. The board had never been happier. The company was thriving, the stock price rising, but Amara felt hollow. She had achieved everything her grandfather wanted, everything she had worked for, but without Khari, it all felt meaningless. 2 weeks after Khari left, Amara received a phone call from Zara. You're destroying yourself, Zara said without preamble. I can see it. I treated him terribly, Amara said, not bothering with pleasantries. I ignored him, dismissed him, took him for granted. And now he's gone, and I deserve that. You're right. You did treat him badly, Zara agreed. But that's not why he left. He left because he was bound to protect you, serve you, love you. But what he wanted, what he has always wanted, is to be chosen. Not because of obligation, not because of magic, not because you have no other option, but because you actually want him there. He'll never want to see me again, Amara said. Maybe, Zara acknowledged. Or maybe he's waiting to see if you're brave enough to want him, to choose him, without magic, without obligation, without the excuse of your grandfather's binding, just because you love him. Amara hung up and sat in silence. Then she went to the balcony and looked at the blue roses. They were beginning to fade, the magic leaching away now that Khari was no longer bound to maintain them, but they were still beautiful. They were still impossible. They were still a testament to 5 years of love poured into something created for her. She pulled out her phone and texted him. The roses are dying. I don't know how to save them. The response came back within minutes. They were always meant to fade. Magic cannot last forever, but beauty made real, even if temporary, is still beauty. Do not mourn what was, celebrate what it means. Amara called him immediately. I need to see you. There was a long pause. Amara, please, she interrupted. I need to tell you something. I need to tell you that I was wrong. I was afraid and I was cruel, and I ignored something precious because I didn't know how to see it. Please come back. Not because you're bound to, not because of any contract, but because I'm asking you to give me another chance, another pause. Then, where? The balcony, where it all started. She waited. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. The blue roses glowed in the fading light, their colour deepening as the natural light changed. And then the air shimmered, and Khari was there, standing amid the impossible flowers. Hello, Amara, he said softly. I love you, she said, the words tumbling out without thought, without filter, without fear. I've been too afraid and too stubborn to admit it, but I love you. Not because you were bound to serve me, not because my grandfather wished it, but because you stayed, and you cared, and you grew impossible roses on a balcony in Seoul just to show me that beauty exists. And that is the most real, most human, most magical thing anyone has ever done for me. Khari moved toward her, his expression a mixture of hope and caution. What are you saying? I'm saying that I choose you. Not now, not today, not because I'm obligated, but tomorrow and the day after, and for as long as you'll have me. I choose you freely, without magic, without any excuse except that I cannot imagine my life without you in it. He reached out and took her hand. I have been waiting 5 years for you to see me, he said. I will wait 500 more if that is what it takes. You won't have to, Amara said, and she kissed him as the blue roses bloomed one final time in the darkness, their magic one last burst of beauty before fading away. 6 months later, Amara and Khari stood on the same balcony. The magical roses were completely gone now, their seeds replanted in ordinary soil, growing into ordinary roses that required actual work and care to maintain. They were sapphire blue still, but through cultivation and love rather than magic. Khari was not the same being who had materialized in her apartment a year ago. He had begun consulting officially with the Luminants, helping shape policy for the secret society. He had started a foundation that invested in small businesses, particularly those owned by women and minorities. He was building a human life piece by piece. And Amara had changed as well. She was still the CEO of Kwon and Sons, still respected in business circles, but she had softened somehow, allowed herself to be vulnerable, to need people, to trust that love wasn't weakness. I have a question for you, Khari said, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. Not a wish, not a binding, just a question. He opened the box to reveal a ring, sapphire blue, matching the roses, but grown from earth rather than magic. Amara Chen, will you marry me? Not because anyone has wished it, not because we are bound by contract, but because you choose to, freely and completely, for the rest of our lives? Amara said yes before he could finish speaking. She said yes as he slipped the ring on her finger. She said yes in the form of a kiss that felt like coming home. And if anyone is watching this story, if this tale of magic and love and second chances has resonated with you, I want to remind you of something. The real magic isn't the genie or the impossible wishes. The real magic is choice. It's seeing someone truly, accepting them completely, and choosing them anyway, every single day, without the excuse of obligation or fate. That is the greatest magic of all. If you loved Amara and Khari's story, if you believe in love that transcends obligation, please like this video. Subscribe to the channel for more stories of magic and redemption. And comment below, tell me, would you have chosen differently than Amara did? Would you have seen Khari sooner, or would you have made the same mistakes? I'm so grateful you spent 30 minutes with me today. This story was created with so much love, and I hope it touched your heart the way it touched mine. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification bell so you never miss a new story, and share this with someone who needs to be reminded that the greatest magic is being truly seen by someone who loves you. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.